Hey y'all, it's Mama Beth and I'm in my kitchen and I'm going to talk about something serious today. I'm going to talk about grief. We've had a lot of things going on that have caused grief to us as individuals, to our families, deaths in our family, loved ones, mothers, sons, friends. Then we've had some awful things going on in the world today, and I think all of us have been touched, and we're all grieving for the loss of the people in Texas who were shot. Just all of the between the hurricanes and tornadoes and fires and earthquakes, I don't think any of us has been left untouched. And I'd like to talk about grief today because honestly, I'm not really good with grief. Like, I don't do a lot of grief counseling because I have a hard time with death. I don't handle it very well. It's not something I'm proud of, but I'm a big crier, and I kind of fall apart, and I usually end up needing counseling. And yes, therapists do go to counseling because it works, but I want to reach out to those people who have had recent losses and just hold them, just give them a hug. It's part of the way I am. I was like that before I was a mother, so I can't even say it's just a mother's instinct, but I can't reach through the internet, so the only thing I knew to do was to make a video and talk about grief and causes for grief and how to work through it and how to cope. We all feel a little lost when we lose someone we love. And it doesn't matter if it's someone that you see every day or if it's someone online that you've been in contact with and you've become friends on the internet. If we lose them, it's still grief. I want to start off by saying that a wonderful woman, her name is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Back in 1969, she was dying and she was grieving her own death. And she worked with a gentleman, David Kessler, and he was a grief expert, and he helped her get her feelings down and in a book. And they came up with, it's called On Grief and Grieving, and it's the 5 stages of grief. Now, the way she lists them, they are not meant to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? You might be at 1 and then 3 and then 2, and it can all shuffle around. But it ends always with acceptance. Acceptance and hope. After that book came out, and I read it when I was very young. My mother had a copy of it. She's a retired nurse. And I read her copy and it helped me a lot. But now we have a new system. We used the 5 stages for a long time when treating patients or when understanding our own grief. But now we have 7 stages. And they are shock and denial, pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, depression, reflection, and loneliness. Then the upward turn, reconstruction and working through, and then finally acceptance and hope. Now let's talk about each of these. When you first suffer a loss, when someone you love dies, the first thing that we do is scream, no, no, it can't be happening. And we're in completely shock and denial. We don't want to believe it. And we want a lot of times, I think, if I could just turn back the clock and fix things, then maybe it won't happen. maybe it wouldn't have happened. But that's your first stage that pretty much everyone hits. But if you don't, and you have the second or the third thing on the list, that's fine too. Remember, grief is personal. There aren't really any rules. You can grieve however you need to. All right? And there's no time limit on it. Now, the second thing, pain and guilt. Physical pain from grief is not uncommon at all. You'll have headaches. You'll have, your muscles ache. Your whole body feels like it's been beat with a bat. Insomnia, headaches, it all hits. And that's the pain. And then we have guilt, because there was nothing that we could do to stop it. And we'd like to think that we're all powerful enough to have control in our lives. We tell ourselves, if I do this, this happens. That's a logical way to think. A plus B equals C. But we're not omnipotent. We can't control everything. And we certainly can't control some of these tragedies. There's nothing we can do. I know that when my grandmother died, my Dee Dee, I had taken care of her for 4 years. And by myself, 4 years in the house with her. And I loved her, and I still love her. And I'm still grieving. But, I kept thinking, and I'd say it, what if I had done this better, or I should have done that better? But she was 83 and she was bedridden, and there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could have done better. I took care of her the best I knew how, and I loved her. And I'd spend each night by her bed, and we'd watch TV, or I'd rent movies, and she loved that. And she would tell me stories about, when she was younger and things that had happened. And she'd tell me family history. And, I was there to make sure that she didn't go to a nursing home, and that I could make the last part of her life as good as she made my first part, because she spoiled me. I was her only granddaughter, and she and my Grampsy would say that all the time, "You're our only granddaughter." So I wouldn't change. I wouldn't have made a different decision to go and stay with her. I wasn't letting some stranger take care of her and bathe her. No, she wanted to be at her home, in her house. And I did that. I gave up everything I had to go and stay with her. But in the back of my mind, there's always that, what if I had done something else? What could I have done, better? So there's pain and there's grief, and y'all forgive me, I cry when I think of her. Then anger and bargaining. When you lose a child, I had a miscarriage, but when you lose a child, or when you lose a best friend, or someone who is so close to you and you love them so much, you get angry because they've left you. You didn't get to spend more time with them. And maybe it's selfish, but sometimes it's easier to be angry, and then we feel guilt along with that. So pain and guilt, and then the anger and bargaining. You think when they're sick and dying, or when you find out the first time, you're like, God, please take me instead. Please, I'll do anything. I'll go to church. I'll be a better person. I'll do anything. Just bring them back to me. Give them back to me. And that's part of the grieving process. Depression, reflection, and loneliness. I know that after my grandmother died, and I talk about my grandmother a lot, but that house was so big and it was so quiet, and I felt so alone, you know, because she had Alzheimer's and she was bedridden, but she didn't let it bother her. She had RA really bad, and so she couldn't walk. After I'd been there like 6 months, she fell and she said, "I'm not doing this anymore. You can just wait on me." And that was her. And it was one of the things, she was so feisty, you know, and she was like a queen in her throne on that bed. But she would call my name. She called me Bethy. My family calls me Bethy. And every 5 minutes, it didn't matter what I was doing, I'd hear, "Bethy, Bethy." And I swear I can still hear that in my dreams. I dream about her. But I was so depressed, you know, when it first happened, when she first passed away. I collapsed and cried, and I was in a really bad depression for a while, and I sought treatment, and that helped. Then you have the upward turn, where the pain is not so raw, and you start to come to the realization that, you know, this was going to happen, and they're in a better place. And of course, I'm Christian, and whatever religion you are, or, you know, whatever higher power, I believe my Dee-Dee's in heaven, and that she's happier now, and she's not in pain, and she can walk. She's young and beautiful, and I kept concentrating on that. Then Reconstruction and Working Through. Boys, stop, Merlin. Sorry. Dogs. Wiener and a Maltese. The Reconstruction and Working Through. Reconstruction is building yourself back emotionally, putting yourself back together again, and trying to get some semblance of normalcy in your life again. You know, I'd stayed with her for 4 years, so I worked online, and I did a lot of things online, but of course I couldn't leave the house. She couldn't be left by herself, and I didn't have anybody to watch her. So I said, I gotta get out of this house. I was kind of agoraphobic, and some friends of mine said, start out slow, work part-time for us. They had a little restaurant. They made sandwiches, and salads, and, you know, things like that. And it was healthy food, and I really liked them a lot. And I had met them just after my Dee passed away. I was literally just in town, wandering, trying to keep myself together, but get out of the house so I would get used to it. And I went in there and I had lunch, and I really liked Angie and Mike, and they hired me, and I worked part-time, and that was all I could handle at first. And then eventually I went to work at the radio stations. I've been in sales and marketing and production for radio and other medias. I had done that, and I was back in school as well. But, you know, they helped me get back on my feet, and I'm very grateful for them. But, and then the last is acceptance and hope. You accept they're gone. You start to feel more calm, and you have hope for the future. And you can start planning. You can start planning what you're going to do, where you want to go, what you want to change in your life. But you start getting hope back, and you start to accept that they're gone, but you have the memories. You'll always have those. But yeah, those are the 7 stages of grief. Now, I talk about grief and, you know, in a death, but there's lots of things that can cause you grief. And I've got a list here. A divorce or a relationship breaking up, loss of health. If you get diagnosed with something serious, like when I first got diagnosed with all this RA and type 1 diabetes and everything, I was grieving because, like, now I'm on a cane or a walker, but 20 years ago I was performing professionally in music theater and with my band, and I loved it. I really loved it. That was the joy, other than my daughter, who is my greatest joy. It's the best thing I ever did. But that was my outlet. And then finding out that I was sick was something that was going to eventually make me not be able to walk and move like I had been. I grieved over it. I went through the stages of grieving with it, and cried, felt sorry for myself, got very depressed. You grieve over that. Loss of a job, financial stability, that can hit you like a ton of bricks, and you don't know which way to turn. Let's see, a miscarriage. I had a miscarriage before my daughter, and I still think about it. I grieved hard. I was so desperate after that. I thought, I've got to have another baby. I've got to try again. And I grieved really hard until I conceived my daughter. And even though now and then it still comes to mind how old that child would be, I've got a beautiful girl who I love with all my heart. I mean, she's my pride and joy. But a miscarriage can really knock you on your butt. Retirement. When you retire, you go through grief because your whole life's changed. All of a sudden, it's like, and I hear patients say this, in therapy, it's like, I've worked all my life. I worked, 40, 50, 60 years. What do I do now? Am I worth anything now? And of course they are. But it's really hard. Your life gets turned upside down. Loss of a pet. Every time I've had a dog die, and we give them excellent care, but we adopt. So we get older dogs, and when we lost Chloe and Winston and Max, those are the 3 that we've lost in the last 10 years. You would have thought I'd lost my child. They're my babies. And I grieved really hard. My husband did as well. And it's like you've lost a member of your family, because they're there with you all the time and they love you and you love them. So definitely loss of a pet, loss of a dream. Like if you've been dreaming all your life about, doing something specific, whether it's performing or, learning a new skill or becoming famous or whatever, when your dreams are crushed, you grieve. A loved one's serious illness, that'll knock you back. Loss of a friendship. Some people, if you lose their friendship and they've been very important in your life, it's like death. It's like, I had a friend that I was friends with since we were like 5 years old, and we had been close all our lives. We raised our children next door to one another. I babysat her child. I think her child had dinner more at my house more than she did at theirs, because I was home earlier. My schedule was different, and my friend, she worked a lot of hours, but you would have thought we were sisters. And then she broke my heart. She let me down so badly that I said, it's over. I can't have anything to do with her anymore. And it's a shame, because drugs, she constantly was using, and I don't do that. And she lived her life very differently than I did, and than I do. And losing that friendship was hard. But I had to stick to it because I had to care more about myself and my family and my well-being. You know, I'd done everything I could for her. And she just spat in my face. She didn't literally do it, but that's what it felt like. Loss of safety after a trauma. You know, we talk about all the natural disasters, the terrorist attacks, gunmen, mass shootings, Las Vegas, Texas, San Antonio, Texas. You know, when we hear about all this, even if we don't know the people, it shakes us up. But if we've got somebody that we knew that was there, or, they're suffering, like in Puerto Rico. I have a wonderful friend whose family is all in Puerto Rico, and, they're struggling, and we're sending care packages and doing all we can. But, it's terrible. And then the last one is selling the family home. After living with my grandmother for 4 years and taking care of her 24/7, I had so many good memories in that house. Holidays, dinners, celebrations, get-togethers, birthday, or just going and spending like a month at her house with her and Gramsci. During the summer, I would go and stay, and she taught me how to cook. She's the one that I have her items, her kitchen stuff, and so many great memories in that house. And yet, when it was sold, when my mother and my aunt decided, they're just going to sell it, I was so hurt, and I grieved. I'll never get to walk through that house again. All those places in the house that I used to play and, read, and, my bedroom there and all that, that's hard. It's hard to get over. There's a new family living there and making their own memories, but I'll never get to make another memory there. Put my glasses on, I can't read. But even subtle losses can trigger a sense of grief. You might grieve after moving away from home if you leave for college, or if you move to a new state. We call it being homesick, but it's a form of grieving. There are all sorts of things that happen in our lives, and we can't be ashamed of grieving. That's one of the things that I want to really have stand out. You grieve all you want. Okay? Don't let anyone tell you, oh, you should be over that by now. No. Grieving is personal, and it's important. You have to get through the process. And if you're having a hard time with it and it's going on, go to therapy. Go to grief counseling. Talk to others in group. There are some wonderful ways to, get help emotionally, and you need to seek it out. If you're having a hard time getting over it, go to a counselor. See what there is available to you, even if whether it's one-on-one or in a group, or whatever. And I recommend, if you are having a hard time emotionally with getting through the grieving process, go see your psychiatrist, or you can see your GP and ask for an antidepressant, SSRIs. You can do a 6-month course of meds, and it will help you have more control of your emotions and let you heal. Because sometimes it gets so intense we can't function. And you have to be able to function in your daily life. So if you're going through depression because of that, because of a loss, see your doctor, get help. Okay? Help is out there. There are a lot of myths that surround grief, and I'm going to straighten those out. The first myth, pain will go away faster if you ignore it. Bull. No, it doesn't. It only makes you push it down below the surface, and then it's going to come back. If you don't talk about it and acknowledge it and, get your feelings out, if you push them down, they're still there. You're not getting rid of anything, and no, it will not help you get through it faster. Here's another myth. The pain will go away faster if you ignore it. No. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. Get treatment. Go see your doctor. If you're having migraines and panic attacks, or you're severely depressed, go see a doctor. Get help. There's no shame in that. Number 3, it's important to quote, be strong in the face of loss. No, feeling sad, frightened, lonely, it's a normal reaction. And crying doesn't mean you're weak. You don't have to protect anyone from your feelings. If you have people around you who love you, friends, family, co-workers, they'll understand, and they'll help you. They'll put an arm around your shoulder. They'll sit and listen to you. But yeah, you cry, you get it all out. Another one is, if you don't cry, it means you aren't sorry about the loss. I'm a crier. I cry thinking about the people that I've lost. That's one of the reasons that I don't do much grief counseling, because I hear their story and I'll cry right along with them. And that's not what patients need. That's not what grieving people need. They don't need somebody to cry necessarily with them who is leading a group or doing, one-on-one therapy in an office. I need to be able to listen and commiserate, but I have a bad habit of falling apart. But a lot of people don't cry, and that's personal. Some people just don't cry, and that's okay. It doesn't mean they're not grieving, and if you're not crying, it doesn't mean you're not grieving. You have every right to cry or not, to get angry or not, as you see fit. Whatever you're inclined to do, as long as you don't hurt anybody else or hurt yourself, embrace the grief and the healing process, and you get through it a lot faster. That's the truth. Here's another one. This myth drives me crazy. Grief should last about a year. Who put a damn time limit on grief? My grandmother's been dead 9 years, and I still grieve about her. I have other relatives that I still grieve as well. So there's no time limit. After a year, if you're not feeling better, that's okay. Some people grieve and they're over it in 6 months. Some people take years. But don't want anybody to tell you that you have to be done in a year. No. Moving on with your life means forgetting about your loss. Absolutely not. No. If you're moving on with your life and you're getting yourself together, that's part of the healing. But it doesn't mean that you're still not grieving. I packed a lot of boxes with tears running down my face. So don't ever let anybody tell you that because you're trying to move on and get things done that your heart is healed. Okay? Let's go down through this. Grief can be a roller coaster. It's not something that you're going to start out real intense with your feelings and then go down, 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 down. There will be the initial shock, and then you might be okay a week later for a few days, but then it might all come back. It's up and down. You have to ride the ride. You have to get on there and buckle up and let the grieving happen. I think I've gone through everything that I wanted to say. I want to give my condolences to a friend of mine who lost his son recently. He was a fellow YouTuber. And I just want to tell him that I feel his pain. I don't feel it like it's my child, but I feel pain for him. I know how hard that is. Or I can imagine, you know. I don't know what I would do if I lost my daughter. She's my only child. But I want to give him my prayers, my condolences, and, you know, I'm praying for him and his family every night. That's all I can do. And that's what friends should do. Be supportive, be compassionate. And when you have friends that will stand by you through a tragedy, through a loss, those are the friends you keep. Okay, that's it. If you have any questions, you know, leave me a comment below. If you need help finding someone to talk to about grief, about your grief, and help you, let me know. My DMs are always open on Twitter. You can contact me any way you like. I'm here. But I love you. You love you. My information, if you want to get in touch with me, is going to be all down below. Please hit the subscribe and like button. Okay? That helps me out on here. And be gentle with yourself. Be easy with yourself. If you're working a full-time job and you go through something like this, take some time off for you. You know, if you can afford to do it, do it. Okay? I love you, and you love you. God bless you. Bye.